The Hungarian Grand Prix was a very different race for Mercedes. The W14 was all over the place as they tried to regain the second spot on the timing sheets after being dethroned by McLaren a couple of races ago. Fighting for race wins and championships is the ultimate goal. But for that to happen, they must overtake McLaren first and then close the gap to the prancing bulls. Mercedes have revealed how they are going to do it and what changes in approach they are going to make to return once again as the dominant force in Formula 1. Want to know what Mercedes are really up to? Well, stick around to find out. Let's take a look at Mercedes' performance at Hungary. Before we move on to the alternate strategy Mercedes are now opting for the rest of this season for a much better understanding. On Friday, we did not have much running from any of the top teams, Mercedes included. This was down to the new tire allocation system undertaken by Pirelli, with the aim of saving tires within a race weekend. But with what we saw, Mercedes were way off the pace from the front runners. But with some good overnight work on the simulator, Mercedes found a better operating window for the W14, which actually translated to the stunning pole lap Hamilton produced during qualifying. Starting on pole on Sunday's Grand Prix, many expected an easy podium for the Silver Arrows. But a poor getaway from Hamilton meant that he lost 3 places down into turn 2, and poor race pace translated into the possibility of a podium finish slipping out of the Silver Arrows' hands. But as the race progressed, Hamilton's pace improved vastly as he made an overtake on one of the McLaren cars and was on the final laps, challenging Red Bull's Sergio Perez for the last spot on the podium. This prompted many to point out the inconsistency problem within the W14. Some believe the reason behind Hamilton's poor race pace to be the team opting to set up the car better for qualifying rather than focusing more on race pace, just as Red Bull did. During the latest Mercedes race debrief video, Andrew Shovlin of Mercedes provided a clear-cut answer to that question, which actually made a lot more sense and favored the Mercedes car a lot more. We all know how much cooling dependent the Hungarian racetrack is. It is always a compromise for teams to achieve a balance between better cooling and aerodynamic drag. As more cooling the team adds, that increases the car's overall aerodynamic drag. Teams therefore use their supercomputers to simulate various situations within a race weekend to achieve that perfect balance between cooling and aero. And according to Shovlin, this is where the problem was for Mercedes, as their simulations was a bit off from actual race conditions. That led both their drivers to manage cooling issues throughout the initial stages of the Grand Prix by lift and coast and by running in a bit more cooler air, not close to their rivals. Shovlin pointed out this to the problem within the W14 around Hungary, which reflected on poor pace from Hamilton's side. He also mentioned that Hamilton showed the real pace of the W14 towards the end of the race, as that was when the temperature issues came under control, which allowed both of their drivers to actually hustle their car on the limit. We had one issue where the way that we predicted the cooling had meant that we were undercooled, so we are investigating why that wasn't in line with expectation. The consequence was that we had to ask the drivers to do lift and coast. This is where before they get to the end of the straight, they come off the throttle in the first bit of the entry phase to the corner they are doing without brakes, then they pick up the brakes later. This helps cool the power unit, but it costs lap time. It also meant that neither driver could really attack the cars ahead of them. Later in the race, we got into clearer air, so things were in a better window in terms of the temperatures. We could let them attack the cars ahead and we were able to show better pace. This explains one thing. That inconsistency we saw with the W14 at Hungary was really not an inconsistency. It was rather cooling demands, which hampered the Mercedes duo's pace. So let's just take the final stint pace of Hamilton for reference. Toto mentioned that the Mercedes car was the second fastest around Hungary. Is that fact true now? Well, it seems though, as on average, Hamilton has been 2 to 3 tenths faster than the McLaren of Lando Norris, which makes the Mercedes second fastest around Budapest. Now you might think, what does Hungary have to do with the alternate approach Mercedes has chosen to go with for the rest of this season? Well, Hungary was the start of that approach. Ever since the W14 hit track on Bahrain, the car had lots of problems, which of some were solved with a conceptual upgrade at Monaco, a new floor specification, new front suspension, and a shift in aerodynamic philosophy enabled Mercedes to see an uplift in performance at Barcelona and Canada. They clearly were the second fastest car until McLaren introduced their upgrades, which catapulted them in front of the Silver Arrows. According to the timing sheets, McLaren have been able to find out more than a second's worth of performance with their latest batch of upgrades. This is something that would both bother and encourage the Silver Arrows, as they find themselves again behind one of their customer teams, yet they now know that a big leap in performance is achievable if the upgrades are done right. Whatever we saw at Monaco from Mercedes, all those new parts were produced under the technical leader of Mike Elliott, who now has been replaced by James Allison, the important mind behind the creation of the W11, a car which we refer to as the best car ever existed. So since his return to the role as technical director, we have not seen much of his artwork being applied on the W14 or on its upgrades yet. That was one of the biggest mysteries that we have not yet been able to uncover as to why and what is happening behind the scenes at Brackley. Since the inception of the ground effect technical regulations in 2022, all Mercedes has done is to try and solve problems, rather than to try and seek out more performance. That is what Mercedes, and especially James Allison, believes has put Mercedes in this uncompetitive position currently. In 2023, Mercedes are not going to be any competitive to fight for championships due to the advantage Red Bull and Max Verstappen have both in the drivers and constructors. So, it's all about regrouping for 2024 and having a car from the get-go, which is not only competitive, but also will be on par or better than what Red Bull has to offer. Allison believes that whatever they can learn from the W14, that will directly impact the development of the 2024 W15. The W14 has issues, and the tech genius believes that they are all solvable on next year's car. So for this year, instead of trying to solve problems like last year, Allison-led technical team are only going to focus on performance improvements. Chauvelin has said the team hopes that in 2024 it can concentrate on finding performance, and at the same time not be as hemmed in on development options by early design choices, as was the case with its previous sidepod concept, as he went on to add. It is fair to say that with these regulations and the way the cars work, we have been very focused on fixing problems. It might be bouncing or a balance issue that you are trying to solve. But as we are making progress on that, the actual way that you develop a car is you are more looking for just performance. So you get less focused on a big list of things that you need to solve, and more just on where we can bring the lap time. The focus for next year's car is that we make sure the key decisions give us a lot of scope for development. You can see this year just how much performance all the teams are bringing as they go through the year, and you need to be able to bring that performance. But as I said, we are a little bit less focused on solving this list of issues and just looking at how can we make a good step in lap time, and hopefully a step that is going to get us back to regular pole positions and being able to challenge for wins. Mercedes have planned upgrades for the upcoming Spa Grand Prix. While we hope that this will be a step in the right direction, it's all about performance gains for Allison and his team. When talking about the Belgian upgrades, Andrew Chauvelin went on to say, Spa-Francorchamps is a classic venue and a true challenge for both the cars and drivers, especially in the sprint format with such limited practice time on a long and challenging lap. We will be bringing updates this weekend as part of our ongoing development program. We hope this will be another small step forward in improving the W14. As we have seen at many races this year though, it is hard to predict where we will be relative to our competitors. Wherever the true pace of our car is here, we want to maximize the outcome in this final race before the summer shutdown. Second or third does not matter for Mercedes. It's wins and championships that they care about, and those are the things which matter in this sport. So, that's what James and his team are hunting right now, and the W14 is used as the base for that transformation within this season and 100% for next season. But what do you guys think? Is going aggressive a good option for Mercedes for this and the next season? What are your expectations from Mercedes at Spa? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section down below. We'd love to discuss it with you. And on your way down, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get notified of our future uploads to keep yourselves up to date about the 2023 Formula 1 season.